Hey folks, Sty here. Well, I got a little Sty story for you that's a little different than usual. This one's kind of, it's an animal encounter kind of story, and it's got a bittersweet ending to it, but I hope you enjoy the story. Okay, I'll just jump right in it. I had a prior mascot other than Blondie. Her name was Lulu. She was a little black, brown, and white Chihuahua. Very loyal little dog. She was a rescue dog. They used her for breeding in a puppy mill, and we rescued her from that. After my divorce, I ended up with Lulu, and we had Lulu for about 7 years. Well, a year ago, this month, Lulu passed away. She was about 14 to 16 years old, so it wasn't terribly surprising that, dogs just don't live that long. Some live into their 20s, but Chihuahuas don't usually live that long. But I'll get right into the meat of the story. Last year, 2 days before she passed away, I was out here at camp doing some camp chores, and I figured it was going to be an all-day affair, so I come out kind of early in the morning, and Lulu came with me everywhere. She went with me everywhere. So I'm working out here, and I thought Lulu was in the tent. And all of a sudden I hear her kind of growling, and there's this little quiet bark. And I thought, what's she barking at in there? So I went to look, and she's not even in there. So I came walking back out to about here, and from around the tent, here she comes, and she's got a big porcupine following her. She was out back with this porcupine. She comes around with that porcupine. They get about 12 feet from me here. She turns right around, and I said, "No, Lou." I tried to be calm about it. "No, Lou, don't." She walks right up to that porcupine, nose to nose. They touch noses, and they're sniffing each other. She gets all excited. Her tail's going a mile a minute, and she's jumping around, dancing around. She's running around that porcupine. All of a sudden, that porcupine starts hopping up and down, and he's all excited, and he's doing the same thing, and then they'd stop, and it's like they were playing. 45 minutes of that right here. They're playing around in a big circle here. And I kept saying, "You be careful, Lou, you're going to get quills. I can see it happening." She never got a single quill. Well, then all of a sudden the Porky started walking away. And he's heading off that direction away from camp. And Lou's standing there watching him go, and it was like she let out a bark, and it's the kind of bark that she would use if I was leaving and she wasn't coming with. It was like, "No, don't leave me." That Porky stopped and turned around, came back, sniffed her again, and it started chattering. If you've never heard a porcupine, the noise it makes, I can't imitate a porcupine, but he's chattering at her. And she starts making funny noises that she usually wouldn't make. All of a sudden the Porky turns around, he starts walking into the woods, she turns around, she goes in the tent and lays down in her doggy bed to take a nap. I thought, well, bye, Porky. And then I thought, well, we might as well give him a nickname. We'll call him Porky. We're on our way home that afternoon. We're going down the back trail to home. And I can see about 50 yards down the trail, there's Porky standing in the middle of the trail. And I go, "Lulu, your buddy Porky's right there." She looked, and she goes tearing after him. And I thought, slow down, don't run into him. He sees her, and he starts running towards her. And, well, porcupines don't run. They just kind of wobble fast. And he's waddling towards her just fast. Excuse me. I think I inhaled a bug. Oh boy. The two of them go nose to nose again. They're dancing around and playing, and by the time I get up to them, they're done with whatever they're doing, and they're chattering again at each other, oddly. And that porcupine takes off in the woods, down the ravine, across the creek, and off he disappeared. And we're heading home. And all of a sudden I look back, and Lou turned around, went back, and she's standing where he went into the woods, and she's just looking like she wants to go with him. And I kept telling her, no, you have to come home. Come on, come on. And it took a lot for me to get her convinced that she has to come home with me. Well, then the next day, my youngest son came to visit, and he just loved Lulu. Lou loved him. And she played with him all the time he was here visiting. And mind you, my youngest son's in his 30s. And that night, so she had 2 good days. That night, she fell ill about midnight. And she just got sicker as the night went on. It started out with a cough, and then she got just very weak. She got to the point where she couldn't even stand up anymore. I could put water up to her, and she'd lap the water. She'd drink. If I gave her food, she would try to eat, but it was just like she didn't have an appetite. And the following morning, about 11 o'clock, I had her in my lap, and she just went to sleep. She just passed away. Now, Rory has to go and tell me. She said, what was your dad's nickname? I said, well, his nickname was Porky. He got that when he was in the Civilian Conservation Corps. His buddies called him Porky, and it stuck with him the rest of his life. And my father passed away when I was 12 years old. And he became the chief of police of a community in Minnesota. He was their first chief of police. He was actually their first police officer. He was their constable for I don't know how many years before he became chief of police. And then they had a full police department for many years. And then when he passed away, they decided not to have a police department anymore. They had another community come and police that community. But that, I mean, even the newspaper headlines when he passed away called him Porky. Everybody knew him as Porky. So Rory says, well, Porky came and took Lulu home. That's what that was about. She said it was time for Lulu to go, so Porky came to take her away. Well, I should hope so. Wouldn't that be nice? Some people would believe that. And I guess you can believe whatever you choose to believe. And I think I'd like to believe that. That'd be nice. I was very close to Lulu. I was very close to my father. So, just to round the story off, so that puts the sweetness to the bitter end of Lulu. But I still have Blondie. She's my mascot now, my soul mascot. And she's old too. So I don't know how many more years I have with Blondie, but I hope they're all good ones. And I hope she likes Porky also. But we had some very special friends come and visit. Kenton and Rebecca from Rewild University came with their 2 daughters to meet us in person. I've spoken with Kenton for a long time online on YouTube and messaging, and we finally got to meet in person. And while they were here, we did a lot of things, and one of the things we did was we took them for the tour. We hiked through the camp area, and when we got here to base camp, here's Porky. It's just like he was waiting for them. Well, that was just a wonderful experience to watch those girls see their first porcupine and to have it so close to them. I mean, it was just right there on the ground in front of them. And Kenton asked, is it all right if they approach the porcupine to get a closer look? I said, absolutely. I said, that's Porky. He doesn't care. I said, he's my resident porcupine. He's used to people, so yeah, he's part of camp. So they followed him. He was moseying along, and they followed him, and he went up in the big cedar tree over here and sat on the branch, and we observed him for a while, and he posed for a few pictures for those folks, and those girls were really happy they got to see a porcupine out in the wild. So that also plays to the fact that my father, Porky, he always did for the kids. He always did for the kids. In our community, he would take a fair portion of our family's income and reinvest it in the community, and always on kids. He would take the kids of the community, any kid that wanted to go. He would hire as many school buses as was necessary for our community for any kid that wanted to go to the Shrine Circus. And he would take all the kids in the community that wanted to go to the Shrine Circus. Every kid got in free. Every kid got Cracker Jacks and cotton candy and a souvenir from the circus that day. And it didn't matter whether those kids were rich or poor. They were kids. That's all that mattered. And so I'd like to think, too, that Porky came for those girls that day. And, yeah, that's the way Porky was. And now I can say that's the way Porky is, because I've got Porky back. He's in my camp at least once or twice a week. So anyway, I hope I didn't mess this video up too much with the patching in. Thanks for being tolerant with my poor camera. Some of my video patching's not the best, but I'm not doing this professionally, just so people out there, I know some people say, oh, Sty, you need to buy a new camera. You need to this, or need to... Actually, at this point, no. I'm not trying to invest a bunch of money into fancy camera equipment, and I want your experience to be good, but right now I cannot. I couldn't afford it anyway. I just can't get real good high-end equipment, and I'm doing this more because I enjoy it, so I want to keep it that way. I really appreciate all of you watching. Keep your eyes out for future videos. I'm going to be doing a lot more bushcrafting stuff. I'm relearning the hand drill. I'm building some new bow drill kits. I'm going to do some videos on hand drill and bow drill in the near future, very near future. And I've got a whole list of other videos, bushcrafting videos I got to get out. So I'll let you go now, and we'll catch you all later. So all of us from camp here want to say, you all have a nice day. And Blondie thinks she hears something. Maybe it's Porky coming in to see us. Bye-bye, folks.